record this and maybe upload it to YouTube because some of the people can't be here tonight. So we're going to upload it to YouTube afterwards, out of our classes tonight. We're studying the tractate of Megillah in the Gemara. Next Wednesday night we're serving wings and beer, except for in the 9 days, no wings. Okay. That was an inside joke. Okay, where we're holding is this. In the Gemara, where we're holding right now is we're discussing the possibilities of whether or not the book of Esther was written with divine inspiration. Or was it just a nice history book of an event that happened in our history?
So,
Should we be elevating it to the status of a portion of the written Torah? Or is it just a good recorded version of a miracle that happened to us?
is it like just saying like, did God influence it enough? Influence the Quran enough?
Only enough that it was, like I said, if it was written with divine vision, then it belongs as part of the Torah Shebektav we talked about last week. The written Torah has its 3 sections, the 5 books, the prophets, and then the writings. So the question is, to what extent was this just a documentation by great sages of an incredible event that happened in our history? Let me give you an example. There are dozens of events in Jewish history, both in Sephardic lands and in Ashkenazic lands, that are recorded in Jewish history that are called Purim of this particular city. They call it their own little Purim. And these cities celebrated these Purims. Each one celebrated them, of course, not on the status of Purim, which is technically a rabbinic but biblical in the sense that it's part of the written Torah, not like that, but each city celebrated them. And one of the most famous ones is a city in Spain called Saragossa. And the king of Spain at the time was a very benevolent king. And the Jews were very loyal to him. From time to time, the king would come visit Saragossa, I'm staying very quickly, would visit Saragossa. When he would come to visit them in Saragossa, all the Jewish people would come out to greet him because they were loyal to him. And they would bring out the Torahs to greet the king. But what would they do? They would take the Torah scrolls out. They had them in cases, like the Sephardi Torahs came in a case. So they would take out the Torah scrolls and then would just come out with the closed cases because they thought it was disrespectful to bring out the actual Torahs. So they would bring out the cases to honor the king. Along came some anti-Semite who found out that that's what was going on, and he went to the king and he told the king that the Jews don't actually bring out their Torahs. You think they're honoring you. The fact is, they're spitting in your face because they're bringing their Torah scrolls with empty cases. They take out the Torah scrolls first. So the king said, okay, I'm going to test them and see what happens. And the troublemaker was somebody they all knew, but they had no idea that he had come up with this plot, this secret plot against them. P.S. The king announces he's coming the next day to Saragossa to visit. And the night before, like he always did, the shamash of the shul went and took all the scrolls out of the cases and set them aside so that the cases were empty, and that the next day, the leaders of the community would come and take the cases out, empty, to greet the king. That night, the shamash goes to sleep, and his grandfather, who was also the shamash, comes to him in his dreams and says, it's an emergency, get up, get out of bed, run back to the shul. Don't tell anybody that you're doing this. Run back to the shul and put the scrolls back inside the Torahs. In the cases. Put them all back. He wakes up in a sweat and he's like, wow, what a crazy dream. He goes back to sleep again. And his grandfather comes to him a second time in the dream. Why are you sleeping? Why are you in bed? I told you this is an emergency. Get up right now. Go to the shul, put all the Torah scrolls back inside, and don't tell anybody you did it. Yeah, I sent it. Oh, unlock. 1 second.
At a Waymo?
Yeah. Where am I here? Unlock.
Okay, here. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks to Levi. Levi showed me how to unlock it from a distance. Okay. Yeah? He goes back to sleep again. The third time, his grandfather comes to him a third time in the dream, the same night, and says to him, if you don't get up right now, by tomorrow morning, you're going to be with me. Okay, those are your choices. You get out of bed right now, run to the shul, do not tell anyone. Do not tell anyone what you did. Run to the shul, put the scrolls back inside the cases. The shamash wakes up in such a fear, he runs to the shul, he puts all the Torah scrolls back inside the cases. He closes the heichal and goes home and goes to sleep. The next day, of course, the parade comes, the king is there, the leaders of the community come, they just take the Torah scrolls out, they're expecting the cases to be empty, right? Because they know the shamash, right? They come out into the street and the king stops his parade, gets out of his carriage, and he walks up to him and he says, I'd like to see your Torah scrolls. Everyone was ashen, terrified. Oh my gosh. King says, open those cases right now. They open up the cases and all the Torah scrolls are inside. The king turns to the anti-Semite, says, you're a liar, off with your head. So that was the end of that Haman. And of course, that night, big celebration. They finally got rid of the Haman, etc. Big celebration, and the Shamash and Shul told the story. That night, he told the story because they all came to him and he said, "How were the Torah scrolls back in the cases? It's your job to take them out always, right?" So he said, "I had this dream. My grandfather, blah blah blah. Third time I went and I put him back." So that became Purim Saragossa. So the city of Saragossa every year on that date celebrated a special Purim. Because they got rid of their Haman and the big miracle that happened to them about the great, right? But is that part of Torah Shebiktav? Most decidedly not. No. So now we're discussing what about the story of the original Purim? Does it belong in the written Torah or not? And we have differing opinions, what we were talking about. So now, and we tried to prove it. Remember, we started to talk about how Torah scrolls that our sages instituted a level of tumah, spiritual impurity, just by touching a scroll. Why? Because of the rodents, remember, with the truma, with the food next to it, etc. Okay, we're going to move on beyond that now, but we're going to continue with the same theme. The Gemara now says this. We're on 7a2, in the middle of the first column in the Art Scroll Gemara, page 7a, number 2. More on this theme. Amar v'Yehuda Amar Shmuel. No, we did that already. Sorry. Further, in the next column. Okay. Kohelet is the next conversation. In other words, we discussed Esther and we heard the various opinions on Esther. Now, what about Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, which reads like a bunch of really good ideas and thoughts of Shlomo HaMelech, looks like it's written by Solomon, and it's the wisdom of King Solomon. Maybe this is just his smart thoughts. Why do you say that this has to be part of the Torah? So the Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a Brisa. Rabbi Shimon ben Asya says, we're near the end of 782. A scroll of Ecclesiastes will not render your hands tameh, means we're not going to consider it as if it's part of the Torah. Why? Because this is only King Solomon's wisdom. It's not really Torah stuff. So they said to Rabbi Shimon ben Asya, you're making it sound like all of the wisdom of King Solomon is contained in the book of Koheles. That's not true. He was a very wise man, and he said many, many more things. For instance, we already have a verse that says, he could give 3,000 proverbs to every single topic. So therefore, since Koheles is only part of his wisdom, because it doesn't have 3,000 different things, and there's another verse that says, Al Toisef al Devarav, in Proverbs, in Mishnah, it says, don't add anything to King Solomon's words. So you're seeing that King Solomon himself limited what was in Kohelet, what was in Ecclesiastes. And he says there's only so much in here. This is the only ones I want in here. That is an indication, we're saying. The Gemara is saying that's an indication that all the rest of his wisdom is just the wisdom of King Solomon. But what he put in here, he did it with divine vision. The stuff he included in his written work is a sign of his divine inspiration. The stuff he didn't include is just his own wisdom and thinking. So that's how we know that it was part of, that it was holy. The Gemara now asks, why did I need two proofs? The one that it says that he gave 3,000 parables wasn't good enough. Why do I need another verse that says don't add anything? So the Gemara says, V'chi tema, if you're going to say, Meimer Tuva Amma, King Solomon said a lot of things. And he just chose the ones he felt like putting in his written work, he put in. What he didn't feel like he didn't. He just didn't put it in there. In other words, it was random which things he chose to incorporate in his books of wisdom and which books he didn't. Along comes the verse, Tashma, come learn the verse, Al Toisef al Devarav, don't add anything to these words, meaning that this is the words that he wrote with complete and total divine vision versus his other stuff was just his own thoughts. So we're proving that it is. Okay, now back to the book of Esther. That was, we were just talking about Kehelas. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Eliezer said, Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. We know for a fact that the book of Esther was written with divine vision. How do we know? Shenemar v'yomer Haman b'liboy. When Haman is called to Achashverosh, remember this one? I think we started talking about it last week, right? Achashverosh is up all night.
Yeah. And then
we explained the background, the backstory there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Achashverosh is up all night, worrying that they're out to kill him. Right? Achashverosh is up all night worrying that they're about to kill him. And he, remember? And he's wondering, how come nobody tipped me off that there's a murder plot against me? See what happens with your mind? Once you start to think stuff, it just snowballs on itself. And the next thing you know, you're like way off base. You have a friend that you think slighted you, and then it starts to build and build and build. And then finally, the next time you see him, you meet him and he goes, hey, how you doing? Don't how you doing me? You idiot. What happened? What happened? I sent you a text. It took you exactly 2 minutes to respond instead of responding in 2 seconds. I know you're ghosting me. What's the other, not ghosting, what's the other term?
Catfish?
What am I looking for?
Ignore.
Catfishing, whatever. Yeah. No, it's not catfishing. I don't remember what it was I was thinking of. Okay, whatever. Gaslighting. Oh, yeah. That's what I was thinking. Okay. I know you're gaslighting. I have to ask, my kids have to teach me what all these terms mean. Ghosting, I figured out on my own. Gaslighting, I had to ask them, what is gaslighting? I don't understand. How do I gaslight? Because I was in the middle of a conversation with one of my kids, and they said, Ta, you're gaslighting. Okay, so I said, okay. I don't know what gaslighting is, so maybe you can explain to me, and I'll either apologize or say, no, I wasn't gaslighting. Okay? Right? So here's Achashverosh getting completely out of control. He thinks Haman and Esther are both out to kill him. There's a conspiracy going on in the palace. Everybody knows about it. Everybody knows about it because there's no way Esther and Haman could be plotting to kill him and nobody else knows about it. So probably everybody knows about it. Not only does everybody know about it, nobody's telling me. That's why he's sitting up at night trying to figure out how there isn't even one person who's betting on him. Everyone's betting. In other words, this is going to come to a head. right? If I catch them before they catch me, I'll put them to death. But then everybody that was part of their conspiracy is going down with them, right? So how was there not one person who bet on me? That's why he's up all night, right? Okay. And then of course he finds that Mordechai is the one who saved his life and that he had never repaid Mordechai, never gave him a reward. And immediately he goes, see, I told you. That's what's going on here. Haman and Esther are planning to kill me. Nobody will stand up to defend me because when Mordechai protected me from Big Son and Seresh, I didn't do anything to show him any reward. So everyone is thinking to themselves, what point is there in betting on Achashverosh? There's no chance you're going to be rewarded. And if Haman and Esther win and you bet on Achashverosh, then you're dead. So, and there's no chance for reward. So why would I do it? See, he sees that. Now he wants to reward Mordechai, right? To make sure that the world knows. Who shows up at his door? Haman. What's Haman trying to do? Why does he come that night? He wants Achashverosh to hang Mordechai. Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's trying to walk into Achashverosh and tell Achashverosh, maybe you should hang Mordechai on a tree. When Achashverosh just read out of the book of Chronicles that Mordechai saved his life and that he never rewarded him for it. But when is this? This is literally in the middle of the night. So what does Achashverosh think the second Haman shows up there?
He's trying to deceive him.
No, what is he doing here in the middle of the night? I told you he's trying to kill me.
Oh.
Karim Shugana shows up here at 3 o'clock in the morning. What is he doing here at 3 in the morning? I told you, see, I got it all figured out. Him and Esther, they're out to get me. Mordechai's the only guy who's on my side. He even came in the middle of the night to try to. He's working in all. He's got it all working. Okay? Now we're going to learn more about this as we get into the story of Purim and the Medrash backstory later on in the Gemara. We're just going to leave it at this for now. I'll leave you with a cliffhanger with some other more information. Bottom line is, Achashverosh hears that Haman's there. He says, hey, come in here. Can you come in there? And he says to Haman, what should be done for somebody who finds favor in the king's eyes? What is Haman thinking? Because he has no clue that Achashverosh has built up this whole story in his head that he's out to kill him. All Haman knows is, Esther invited me to a party with Achashverosh, and I'm invited again. He's like on the top of the world. I'm the man. I'm the goat. The goat. Or the OG. I got it right? Did I get that right? Okay. I'm the OG. He has no idea he's in trouble with Achashverosh. Achashverosh thinks he's out to kill him, right? So what's the first thing Haman says? Oh, the guy who finds favor in your eyes, who does he think it is? Himself, right? How do we know that that's what Haman thought? Because it says in the Megillah, Vayomer Haman belibo. Haman says in his own heart, who could the king possibly want to do good to more than me? I'm the OG, right? So the Gemara here says, how do we know what Haman was thinking? We put into the book of Esther that Haman said to himself, who would the king want to do favor for more than me? How do we know that's what he was thinking? We interviewed him. We hung him. There was no time for interview. A day later, he's a dead man. We didn't even give time for the Shin Bet and Mossad to sit down and download all this information. He was hung him. Right? So how do we know what he was thinking? So Rabbi Eliezer says, that's how we know that the book was written with divine vision. That's how we know Esther was written with divine vision, because only through divine vision could you divine what Haman was thinking. Simple. Okay, but that's not good enough. We're going to have some more opinions. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Akiva Aimer is the next opinion. Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. How do we know that Esther, the book of Esther, was written with divine vision? Shenamra, a different verse in the book of Esther. Vati Esther noises chen be'enei kol re'eha. Esther found favor in the eyes of every single person who saw her. How do we know that? How would we know that without divine vision? How do we know everybody thought? How would we know that? Where would we have access to such information? A third opinion, Rabbi Meir Aimer. Rabbi Meir says, Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. How do we know that the book of Esther was written with divine vision? Shenemar vayivoda hadava lemordechai. The first part of the story that we talked about tonight, Big Son and Seresh plot to kill Achashverosh, and Mordechai finds out about it. How did Mordechai find out? Now, I already gave you the answer to that question last week. But at this point in the Gemara says it had to be divine vision. He had to have divined that Big Son and Seresh were plotting to kill him. So that proves it. So we have three different proofs so far. Rabbi Yosim ben Damascus, Omer. Rabbi Yosim ben Damascus says from another verse, Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. How do we know that Esther was written? The book of Esther was written with divine vision. Shenemar, the verse in Esther says, way at the end, after the actual war and the story of Purim, it says that the Jewish people took vengeance on their enemies, but they didn't take any of the booty. How would you know that? The only way you can know that is through divine vision. Now, these four authors are all Tanaim. They're of the Tanaic era. We're quoting them here in the Gemara, okay, in the Braisa. Amar Shmuel, along comes Shmuel, who's of the Amoraic era, the Gemara era. It's a whole, supposedly, one step down. Shmuel is not compared to these four other authors who gave you four verses. And Shmuel says, if I would have been there when they were having this conversation, these four great sages in the Mishnah, if I would have been there during this conversation when each one presented their case, I would have mentioned something. I would have mentioned the verse that I think is bigger proof that the book of Esther is written with divine vision than any of the four that you presented. Which verse? Shenemar kimu v'kiblu. They confirmed and took upon themselves. This is a very important verse in the Megillah. And so he read it this way, kimu l'mayla ma shekiblu l'mata. It was confirmed in the heavenly court what had been decreed in this world's court. In other words, that in heaven it was accepted that Purim is becoming a holiday. That in heaven it was accepted. There's no way to know that without divine vision. How would you know what was going on in heaven? You have to have divine vision. So the way he reads the verse, Kimu v'kiblu, means he's reading it that in the heavens they accepted that which we had taken upon ourselves. The Jews here below took upon themselves to make a holiday Purim, and in the heavens it was accepted that there should be a new holiday. That requires divine vision. He says, my proof is better than the other four, than all the four of the Mishnah. Now the question is, why does he think his proof is better? Right? That's our next question. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, so Rava, who's another author of the Gemara, another Amoira, comments on that. And he says, L'kula isla pircha. All of the four proofs of the Tanaic era are flawed. They can be refuted. Levad min l'shul l'es la pircha. But Shmuel's proof does not have any flaw and can't be refuted. How can we refute all four? To Rabbi Eliezer, Svarahu. Rabbi Eliezer's argument that he brings a proof from the fact that Haman said to himself, who does the king want to find favor or want to do a favor for more than me? Yeah? That's completely logical understanding. Because what does Haman say to Achashverosh right afterwards? Oh, you want to do something for somebody you like? You want to do something for him? You should take his crown, and you should take your crown, your cloak, and your horse, and send him on a nice ride through the streets with somebody announcing, this is how is treated someone who finds favor in the king's eyes. What was Haman thinking? He's going to be on the horse. Who's going to be leading the horse? Right? That's what he was thinking. So the fact that he made this statement that this is what should be done for the guy, yeah, that's logical. That's what he must have meant. So when the book of Esther says that Haman said to himself, who does the king want to do favor for more than me? That he was saying that to himself, that's not divine vision, says Rava. That's logic. That makes perfect sense once you hear what he said. Get it? So that's why he says that one is flawed. Next. What about the second one? Let me finish it. It was logical. Why? The law say there was nobody else in the kingdom that was of a higher status than Haman was. So why shouldn't he assume that it's him? And that's why he spoke with such excess of all the rewards that the guy should be given because he was thinking about himself. So that's logical. That doesn't prove divine vision. What about Rabbi Akiva, who said that she found favor, that Esther found favor Be'eni Kol Re'ah, and everyone who saw her? So Rava says that's also not divine vision. Why? Don't make Rabbi Lazar. Because Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Lazar, which we're going to see later in the Gemara, that Malamed, what do we learn from here? Esther had such a look. Remember, Achashverosh ruled over what was considered the known world at the time, 127 provinces. Within these 127 provinces, there were all kinds of different people, with different cultures, and different looks. Okay? Esther's look, just her physical appearance, was such, and remember, she didn't say where she came from, because Mordechai deliberately told her not to say. So she never revealed where she had come from. So every single person looked at her and said, ooh, I think she is Indian. So she doesn't have the red dot, but she's for sure Indian. I'll know for sure as soon as my computer breaks down. Okay? So each country looked at Esther, the Gemara says, and said she looks like she's one of us. Ethiopia said, dark complexion, light colored. But she's Ethiopian, for sure she's Ethiopian. Every country said that. So, again, the idea that this was divine vision, that everybody liked her, yeah, it's not divine vision. Once you know that everyone who saw her thought that she came from their country, automatically, that would explain why everybody who saw her liked her. So that doesn't answer. So therefore, that also doesn't prove divine vision. Number 3, Reb Meir, who says that how did Mordechai know about the plot to kill the king? The plot became known to Mordechai. So Reb Meir says that's proof that it's divine vision, because how else did Mordechai find out? So the Gemara answers, as we pointed out in last week's class, Dilma, maybe we should say the opinion goes according to Rabbi Bar Abba, the Omar who said, Bigson v'Seresh they Tarshim are you. That Bigson and Seresh came from a place called Tarshish. Tarshi. And as we said last week, that was a foreign language. They spoke a foreign language, And since they spoke a foreign language, they thought that it's such an unusual language. They come from such an odd place. They didn't expect anybody in the king's palace to also speak that language. But Mordechai, as a member of the Sanhedrin, had to speak all languages. And we talked about that on Shabbos. Because as a member of the Sanhedrin, you needed to get testimony in the language. You weren't allowed, in a capital case in front of the Sanhedrin, you weren't allowed to hear testimony from witnesses through an interpreter. You had to hear directly from the witnesses. So therefore the Sanhedrin had to speak all languages, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to understand. A witness will come and you won't be able to testify. So Mordechai spoke all languages. They didn't know that. Since they didn't know it, they spoke freely of the assassination plot in their foreign language, assuming that Mordechai doesn't understand what they're saying, because why would he speak Tarsi? That's how he found out. Is that divine vision? No. So that's 3 refuted. What about the 4th one? That it says that they didn't take any of the booty, right? It says, maybe they sent messengers to examine. They sent inspectors to all the countries, because Esther and Mordechai wanted to make sure that Achashverosh doesn't ultimately turn on them. So maybe they sent inspectors to see that anyone take any booty when they found that nobody took, so they included it in the Megillah. Nothing divine.
What about the heaven one?
So Rava concludes, the Shmuel vadeles lapircha, but the opinion of Shmuel, where he said that it's kimu v'kiblu, that in the heavens they accepted the holiday of Purim the way we accepted it here on earth, that has no flaw. You can't refute that. And that is a real proof that the Megillah was written with divine vision. That's what Rava concludes. Okay? Amar Ravina. So Ravina said, the sages of the Mishnah and the Gemara had these cute phrases. Hainu da'amri inchi, this is what people say. Tova chada pilpalta charifta mimlei tzani kari. One sharp pepper is better than a basket full of melons. The authors of the Mishnah are these gigantic melons. They're big, they're giants. Shmuel is an author of the Gemara. So he's just one little piece of pepper. But he came in, this little pepper, came in and gave us more energy, gave us a clearer vision than all the gigantic melons. You're looking at me, Yosef. Why are you looking at me like that? I see it all the time. This thing I see all the time. You could come before a group of people in an organization. I saw it growing up tons of times. The Rebbe would call for a new campaign. And would say, this is what I want done. We should reach more Jews with this, whatever it is. After the Rebbe would call for this campaign, so the quote-unquote leaders of Chabad, the big thinkers, the elders, the intelligentsia, etc., would sit down to lay out, okay, how are we going to implement this campaign that the Rebbe wanted? Should we do this? Should we do that? And they would debate it back and forth. While they're sitting and debating, the young peppers go out and do it. Not waiting for the leaders. Just go, boom. The Rebbe said, do it. We're doing it. Finished. I could say in my own life, one of those gigantic little peppers is my father-in-law. He should live and be well. Since he was a kid. They just opened the 70th season of the original Camp Gan Israel. sleepaway camp in the Catskill Mountains. So they're doing all this retro stuff from the last 70 years of camp. Okay? They're doing all this retro stuff. So one of the stories that they're not, it's in an interview, but the director of camp was a week before camp. A week before camp was starting, like 9 days before camp was starting or something like that. He had an audience with the Rebbe. The Rebbe asked him, how are camp preparations going? He told the Rebbe, we're turning kids away. The Rebbe said, what? We're turning kids away? He was saying this like, wow, we're so successful that we have to turn kids away, right? The Rebbe said, turning kids away, why are you turning kids away? He said, we don't have any place to sleep them. It's a sleepaway camp, we have no place to put them, we're out of space. Well, this guy came out of this private audience. My father-in-law was then, I don't know, a kid, a teenager, I don't know what he was. I have to find out, well, I found out what year it was that this happened, okay? And my father-in-law was there, and he said, shh, I mentioned to the Rebbe that we're turning kids away because we have no space, that there's no more room in the bunkhouses, and the Rebbe was like surprised. And he's like, okay, he didn't see any solution. My father-in-law grabbed 3 of his friends, and they drove up to the mountains. And in 5 days, they built the bunkhouse.
Bless you.
They got material, and they built the bunkhouse. They built it themselves. Sure enough, there was a bunkhouse. They can more kids. There was no plumbing on the first day of camp, but the bunkhouse was there. Plumbing, you know. The bunkhouse didn't have any plumbing, so they had to go to the bathroom and shower or someplace else in the camp. But they had a bunkhouse, had a place to sleep. One little piece of pepper is better than all the gigantic mountains. Shmuel outshined all of these Tanaim in this particular instance. Middle of a shiur, anything urgent? I'll call you back. Yes. Okay. Let's continue. Rav Yosef adds another thing. This is very beautiful. Rav Yosef adds 2 more proofs. We're going to have 2 more proofs. One is Rav Yosef. You know what he says? Me'acha, a different verse. These days of Purim will always be with the Jewish people.
Wait, did they end up
How
writing?
could he know what's going to happen in the future? Right? And the last one, the Zichron Yosef Mizarim, which is the end of that verse, nor shall their remembrance cease from their descendants. Go ahead, what
Did
were you
they
saying?
end up writing it in the?
Yes, Esther is part of the 24 books. Yeah, definitely.
So she won the argument with the.
Oh, completely. That's why it's Megillah's Esther.
Yeah.
That's why it's Megillah's Esther. More proof that in this supposedly patriarchal, misogynistic religion, ultimately it's the women that get everything done. So much for the patriarchy. Yeah, Esther won the argument. She turned out. Remember, these are the greatest sages of these were the Sanhedrin, giants, prophets amongst them. And Esther outdid them all. And prophecy and divine inspiration said, no, this is a holiday. Don't mess with this. So much so, Kimu v'Kiblu, that in the heavens they accepted it. And not only was it accepted in the heavens, but here's the beauty of Purim. Think about this. That's why these final proofs play such an important role. Zichram Yosef Mizarim. Something that's remembered for generations to come, even though it's only a rabbinically instituted holiday. What is the takeaway from that? You know what the message is there? Teach your kids to go all the way, not the minimum. You might think, okay, my kids, what are they going to be able to handle? Okay, we'll give them the mean mitzvahs. They'll come to synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Okay, they won't come on Rosh Hashanah. They'll only come on Yom Kippur. Okay. They'll only come to hear the shofar at the end of Yom Kippur. That's where you wind up, right? That's what happens. Okay, already a better guy, keep Shabbos. Okay, but they should at least show up Friday night to the family gathering before they go out clubbing. No, you're doing this wrong. And you think that the reason you're doing this, right, is you're trying to save Judaism. Because you're in this ridiculous thought process that has been the same ridiculous thought process for over 3 millennia. That if we water it down, the kids will be okay. But if we give them too much information and we demand too much from them, we're going to lose them. When the opposite turns out to be the truth. They want the real thing. If you teach your kids that every single mitzvah is precious, that Purim is special, because it's something we did and we created, and that makes it truly special. And once you can implant that in your children, then v'zichram al Yosef Mizarim, then the book of Esther says prophecy through divine vision that you should know that all your logical arguments for how Judaism, quote unquote, is supposed to survive will all fall by the wayside. Judaism will endure.
There's a quote. It's only those who risk going too far could possibly find out how far one can go.
Okay, I'll take that.
Reminds me of what you just said.
Yes. Should we do a little more? Should we stop here tonight? I mean, it's 9:30 already. And most of the guys aren't here. Should we stop or keep going? You know what? Let's plow. Huh?
Okay.
Because we have a Mishnah coming up, so let's try to finish till the Mishnah.
Wait, when is Selichot?
Slichot. Tomorrow morning there's Slichot. In Shacharit. Why?
Well, I thought that's like whenever you stay up at night, no?
Who's planning on staying up tonight?
No.
I'm not staying up.
No, I know, but whenever you have Slichot, don't you stay up?
No, only Elul. Only during the month of Elul.
Oh.
Slichot is part of the prayers at every fast day.
Oh.
We'll be in the middle of prayers tomorrow. Okay, let's move. The Gemara says interesting. Oh, we're learning about matanot lavyonim, the gifts to the poor. So Tana Rabbi Yosef says, anyone who knows anything about the mitzvahs of Purim, here's where it comes from. The Megillah says you should send food gifts one to the other. So mishloach manot is in the plural. Send plural food gifts. Ish l're'eyu, a person to his friend. So that means 2 food gifts to 1 friend. Right? Simple understanding of the verse. Got it? But then, what does the next of the verse say? So we learn from there, you have to send 2 portions to 1 person. The other one, matanot le'evyonim, plural gifts to poor people, not to a poor person. It's plural. The tzedakah is plural, and the people are plural. So what do we learn from there? You have to give 2 charity gifts to 2 different charities, or to different poor people. And that's where we get it from. So right here in the Gemara, it tells us, we do this every Purim. At least 2 food gifts to 1 person, and then at least 1 charity to 2 different people. So it's 2 charities total to 2 different people. That's what the Mishnah is. And then it tells us some stories. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, that's not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, it's a different guy. Shadli Rabbi Shia, he sent a gift to Rabbi Shia. What did he send him? Atma the igla tlasa, the thigh of a calf born third to its mother. Something special about that. I'm not really sure what, but it makes it special because it was third to its mother. V'garba the chamra, and a bottle of wine. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya sent this to Rabbi Shia. A good piece of meat, okay, and a bottle of wine. That sounds like something you'd get at Munchies, no? Purim time? They don't sell thighs there? No. Okay. Okay, it was like chocolates. An expensive basket of chocolate and a bottle of wine.
Why a third calf? Any reason?
I couldn't find the reason for that.
Okay.
I was looking for it. It just says Shlishi Lebeten. Maybe I have to look at more of the commentaries. Rashi just says it's the third one born. There's got to be something special about it. Let me see in the footnotes here in the Art Scroll if they explain it. No, they don't. I don't know. I'm sure there's something in the comments. Okay. Sholach lei. So Rabbi Shia sent back a message to Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. He said, Kiyamta banu Rabbeinu. Our master just fulfilled two mitzvahs at the same time. He did actually both of them. And the commentaries say maybe Amatonis Levyonim doesn't belong here. Maybe he only means V'shlech Manis. Another story. Rabba Shadl Elamori Bar Mar Biad Abaya. Rabba sent to Mori Bar Mar, and he used his disciple Abaya as the messenger. What did he send him? Malay Taska the Kashpa. He sent him a basket filled with dates. Umili Kasa Kimcha Shuna, and a cup filled with flour of roasted wheat. Amalei Abaya, so Abaya said to Rabba, in other words, Rabba says here, take this as Mishloach Manot to Mari Barmar. So Abaya said, are you sure that's what you want to send? Are you sure that's what you want to send? Avaya says to him, Hashta Amma Mori is going to say to you, Ichakla Malka Leve, if a peasant becomes a king, the Kulam you did not take the basket, which is feed for animals, off of your neck. In other words, you're a big shot. This is cheap stuff. You sent them a bag of kosher Doritos and a Glick bar. You're a rabba. You're kidding, right? You should be sending better gifts. That's what Abaya said to his teacher. But if this is what you want to send, I'll take it. So Abaya goes with this gift and he brings it to him. He gets his gift back. So Mari Barmar sent back to Rabba, Moli Taska de Zangbila, a basket filled with ginger. Okay, this is fancier. Umoli Kosum Paltarika, and a cup filled with long peppers. Okay, so Abaya had a comment on that one too. Amar Abaya. So Abaya said, Hashta on Mama, now Rabba's going to say, when he gets this back, I know Shadalei Chulya v'yu Shadalei Churfa. I sent him sweet foods, he sent me back spicy foods. Ginger is spicy, peppers are spicy. All of these have hidden messages in them. Maybe next week we'll talk about them. Okay, next. More about the same story. Amar Abaya says, Kinafko in Beimar have a savannah. When I left Rabba's house to go to Mari's house, I was already full from the meal. And Kimitoila Hasam, yet when I arrived at Mari's house, they brought me 60 plates with 60 types of cooked food. Tell me this wasn't a Persian party. This is like a Simon's buffet. This is Simon's buffet, right? Brazilian barbecue. must to be sushi, Brazilian barbecue, 4 types of choresht. Rice with lentils, rice with cranberries, rice with rice. Rice with saffron, right?
Tadik.
Tadik with saffron. Tadik without saffron. Okay? So they brought me 60 plates with 60 types of cooked food. For achlebu shitin plugi. And I ate from all 60 dishes. Right? 60 different dishes in the buffet. How am I going to miss any of them? I have to taste every one of them. Abaya says I tasted every one of them. What did the last thing they brought me? Bishula basraisa. You know what the last thing they brought me? What? Have a curly. They called it tzli kedar. Pot roast. The last thing they brought was a pot roast. By the way, if you've ever tried to cook a pot roast, there's an art to that. Yeah, you could cook a pot roast, but if you want it to really come out good, you got to know how to do that. It's a skill. Okay? The last thing they brought me was a pot roast. After eating that pot roast, I wanted to eat the plate. That's how good it was. Amar Abaye, so Abaye said about that incident, this is what people say, Kafin anya v'lo yada, a poor person doesn't know what he's hungry. Because Abaye himself was a poor guy. Inami, a different popular saying, Ravcha l'bsima. Shchiach, room can always be found in one's stomach for sweet things. There's always room for dessert. No matter how much you ate. Once the dessert buffet comes out, everybody's back at the buffet. Always room. They want to tell us another story. Abai bar Oven, Rab Chanina bar Oven, Abai, the son of Oven, Rab Chanina bar Oven, Mechalfi Sudosal Adodi, exchanged their Purim feasts with one another. Oh, I forgot that this Gemara is coming up here. We may have to wait on this one. Okay, we're going to do it, and then we'll repeat it again next week. Yes, they exchanged Purim feasts with one another. They would take turns. One provided the meal 1 year, and the other the next year. 1 year I host, next year you host, right? That's why we have 2 nights of Passover. One night you go to the in-laws, and the other night to the outlaws. Right? One night by the in-laws, other night by the outlaws. What's the difference between in-laws and outlaws? Outlaws are wanted. Okay, let's continue. Okay. It's Purim. Come on. Okay. So 1 year one hosted, 1 year the other one hosted. Amar Rava says, one is obligated to become so intoxicated on Purim till he doesn't know the difference between the difference between cursed Haman and blessed is Mordechai. He can't tell them apart anymore. Rabbi Reb Zera. You ready for the story? This is going to blow your mind. Rabbi Reb Zera of the Sudas Purim Bahadi Adadi. Rabbi and Reb Zera, 2 of the greatest sages of the Talmud, they got together and they had a Sudas Purim together. Ivasum, they became drunk. Ready for this? Come Rabbi Shachtel Reb Zera. Reb Zera, Rabbi stood up, and in his drunken state, in Reb Zera's drunken state, he killed him. He murdered Reb Zera. Lamachar, when he sobered up, he saw Reb Zera dead. Boy Rachma v'achya, so he resurrected Reb Zera from the dead. Next week we'll explain the story. Okay? Lashana, next year, Amalei Rabbi said to Reb Zera, hey, that was some party last year. Let's get together and make another Purim party, me and you. Amalei Reb Zera said to him, miracles don't happen every day. I don't trust you anymore. Not me. Is that a great story? Next week, the Chassidus on this story. That's a cliffhanger. You got to hear the Chassidic interpretation of this story. It's going to blow your mind. Amar Rava says, Sudas Purim Shachal Balayla. One who eats a Purim feast at night, the Purim Suda has to be eaten during the day, which we know. My timer, because it says Yemei Mishta V'Simcha Ksiv. It says during the day, days of feasting and gladness. Another incident, Rav Ashi Avi Yosef Kamei. Rav Ashi was sitting before Rav Kahana on Purim. Nagav L'Yosef Rabbanon. It grew late, and the sages still did not arrive to the house of study. So Rav Ashi said to Rav Kahana, "My time L'Yosef Rabbanon, where's everybody? Oh, we've been sitting here all day. How come nobody came to learn Torah? Where's everybody?" Purim. Maybe they're busy with wings on Wednesday night. Maybe that's why they're not here. Maybe they got busy with the Purim feast. Amalei Rav Ashi said, they could have eaten it last night and come today to learn. Amalei, he says, did you never hear? Rav Kahana answered Rav Ashi, don't you know what Rava said? That Sudas Purim Shachal Balali is Techvas, if you eat the Sudas Purim the night before, you didn't fulfill your obligation? Amalei, he said to him, is that true? Rava said that? Amalei, he said, yes, he did say that. Tanonei Arben Zimnin. Rav Ashi learned this ruling from Rav Kahana 40 times, but Damalei command until he was able to secure it in his memory. So then he really knew what was going on. We finished till the Mishnah. We get to learn the next Mishnah, the new Ein Bain, coming up next week. And first, probably we'll have a little bit of a fabring and to discuss the story of Kamer Abba V'Shachtar Reb Zayda, what that means. Hope you all enjoyed tonight's class. It'll be up on YouTube tomorrow. I'll send out texts of the link to YouTube. And we'll see you all soon. L'chaim.
Where did the story of the